So the day is here, Leo. Leo the lion. I'm going to try to keep to my talk this morning, meaning the written word, so that we can start our meditation about 5 minutes after 11. Since the actual exact time of the full moon is at 10 after 11 Mountain Time. Standard. Arizona never changes, which is very nice for us, but drives everybody else crazy. Okay, Leo. So the talk this morning is, we could title either as The Awakening or as The Cave in the Head. I'm going to be talking about both aspects of Leo. But let me begin with a reading taken from the book Agni Yoga. The master says, "Does the roar of the lion set the worlds a-tremble?" And the answer is no. Daring is awakened, and the royal lotus of spirit unfolds. Brothers, he says, let us gather in the hall of joy. The flower has unfolded. Raised is the great wheel. Our joy descends to the netherworlds and rises to the brothers in the supermundane. So that's Agni Yoga, paragraph 10. The netherworld means below the earth's surface. You know how life oftentimes brings synchronicity to our day. When I was putting the talk together, which was the middle of the week, this past week, that same day I was watching an interview of James Cameron by Charlie Rose. You know Charlie Rose? He's a great interviewer and journalist, and he has a profound program that's on, I'm not sure, CBS or ABC, one of the two, every day during the week. Anyway, he was interviewing James Cameron, who is the producer of Avatar, and I think also the Titanic. What James Cameron has been working on for 7 years is a way to get to, as Charlie Rose defined it, the bottom of the earth. And he has been successful. James Cameron has been successful. First person ever to have reached that depth in the Pacific Ocean, which was 7 miles down, 33,000 miles, equal to 33,000 miles, which is, if you think of the Himalayan mountains as being 27 feet high, this goes even more in depth. So it's not 33 miles. Did I say 33 miles? It's 33,000 feet. So the deepest point of the ocean is deeper than the highest mountain in the world. And then he gave his philosophy about what was going on. But I don't agree with some of his philosophy, but who cares? You know, I mean, he achieved something no other man alive has ever achieved. And apparently there is a film that the National Geographic helped him put together. I don't know if it's out there yet or not, but it's certainly something to explore. Okay, so the netherworlds. Our balance is when the master says, our joy descends to the netherworlds and also rises to the brothers in the supermundane, from the lowest to the highest to the lowest. So it is during the Sun Festival of Leo that the individual soul begins to wake up. Our individual soul begins to wake up. Leo then represents a movement out of mass consciousness into self-consciousness. So there's actually an astrological reason behind this. Esoterically speaking, mass consciousness is ruled by the sign of Cancer. So as the soul goes from Cancer into Leo, he's going from mass consciousness into individualized consciousness. So that's where that idea comes from, that Leo represents a movement out of mass consciousness into self-consciousness. The lion starts to roar due to an event in the person's life. So we want to think about that event. That event may not even have occurred in this lifetime. It may have occurred many, many thousands of lifetimes ago when we moved from mass consciousness into self-consciousness. But that moment of awakening is certainly a moment that we would recognize as a major event in the life of our soul. So you may say, well, how am I supposed to know how many lifetimes ago, or what lifetime it was? It's not important, and this is why. We have every single lifetime the opportunity to go through the regenerative process. And that means recapitulation. And recapitulation means that we will either slowly or very rapidly go through the major event or major episodes of the life of the soul from way back when. So there will be some echo of remembrance, some echo of memory, where that special event occurred when you went from mass consciousness into self-consciousness. And thus the lion starts to roar. Now, here's a little description about the event. Oftentimes this happens after some form of betrayal. Isn't that interesting? The person puts his trust or faith in another who betrayed that trust. Now, that betrayal will be recreated in this life. If you have studied the life of Helena Rourke, you know that she had a particular enemy that follows her every single incarnation she has. That enemy is with her. That's the betrayal. That's the event, moving us from mass consciousness into self-consciousness. It's an awakening experience. Now, what is the awakening process? At that moment of betrayal, the person has no one to rely on. They no outer form to lean on. And so the only place to turn is within. It is like going inside a cave and realizing that in a sense you are the only one in the cave. The soul, the spark, is now going to learn to draw upon his own or her own inner strength. This is a stage that we call the stage of the aspirant, who will eventually move from his self-centeredness now into universal centeredness. And that's Leo, going from the self-centered into the universal centeredness. In other words, realizing that Leo and Aquarius are polar opposites, but they work together, trying to take the Leo individual from self-centeredness into group consciousness or universal centeredness. You may say, okay, I'm not going to listen to any more of this talk because I'm not a Leo or an Aquarian. Aha! That is where you would be wrong. Because in essence, we have all 12 zodiac signs within us, and even a couple we don't know about. So there is a part of our nature that is indeed Leo and Aquarius. So don't turn off your computer. okay, if you're watching this remotely. To be universal centered means that we are now a world disciple. We are a member of the new group of world servers. And we even may be consciously active in the higher ashram. The keynote of Leo is I am that, and that I am. I am that, and that am I. I am that, and that am I. I am that, the word of the Leo subject, who is rapidly gaining the higher consciousness and preparing for fresh and universal expression in Aquarius. So that's us today. Okay, that we're moving from our self-centeredness, wherever that means for us, into a universal consciousness. We're going to do this through group meditation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about group meditation and the cave in the head and what it means and how scientifically our consciousness can actually make a contact with higher frequency or greater light. And that greater light is what puts us in contact then, or makes us, at least momentarily so, have a universal centeredness. So the Leo person says or experiences self-rule through initial conflict. Self-rule through initial conflict. This is then carried to a successful issue. It is blessed by the beneficence of Jupiter and is the true history of the advanced Leo aspirant. To become an aspirant means that your human soul is uniting your personality. Your human soul is uniting your personality so that our physical and emotional and our mental instruments or vehicles are no longer divided or working against themselves, but now we're a unit. Our personality is solid. It is a solid unit. It works in one or in harmony. The three lower bodies are now going to unite with the light of the capital S soul, which is the light of the solar angel. So now as a unit, our personality fuses with the purpose of the capital S soul. And we finally become soul infused, or is also known as a soul infused personality. Now that's it in a nutshell. You can read maybe 3 volumes of 800 pages each of those 3 volumes of books to bring this together, and it tells you how everything happens. But this is the essence of what happens as we evolve from one incarnation to the next, after we have the awakening process. After that one major event, then we begin to move and advance forward and evolve. So this is a dynamic moment in our life. And now the lion is more powerful. The lion within us is more powerful than ever. Through our striving, we gain control over our personality. And the lion ends up consciously fusing with the source of that power, that higher power, which is the solar angel, or the capital S soul. Now the lion becomes a lamp in the desert. He brings his knowledge. We're the lamps. Okay? We bring our knowledge and perception into the group. A disciple's centers are open now. So what's really happening in the process of our own spiritual evolution is that we have moved from the stage of the aspirant. which is the stage you find spiritual students full of aspiration, overzealousness, a little fanatic, so on and so forth. But then they reach a point where they settle down okay, and choose a path. And now they move from the stage of being an aspirant to the stage of being a disciple. At that stage of discipleship is truly the onset of the individual engaging in greater and greater service. How does this happen? Well, the disciples' centers are open now, which enables the person to reduce what? Reduce imperfections in his surroundings. It brings not only the development of true sensitivity, but also the offering of his own forces for the improvement of his surroundings. So you see how service and improvement are now working. It is not to serve others as a doormat, but in the service to really make a change. Really make a change in the environment. So in the radiance of the sun, the Leo disciple begins to perceive the next level of consciousness, the Leo to Aquarius, moving from Leo into the consciousness of Aquarius, which is group consciousness. So as the whole zodiac now is moving into the age of Aquarius, that means humanity is also now being bombarded with the energy of Aquarius, moving from self-centeredness to universal centeredness and all the stages in between. Group consciousness is governed by the sign opposite of Leo, which I said is Aquarius. In group consciousness, the strong individual, and we're not talking about the weak, the strong individual cooperates with the ideals of the group in order to manifest the purpose of the group. So it is the oftentimes the overzealousness of the aspirant that creates such an independence in consciousness that they are not interested in blending into the consciousness of the group. It is the disciple, the Leo to Aquarius. It is the disciple that now moves into and works and cooperates with the ideals or the vision of the group in order to manifest the purpose of the group. True group consciousness is in harmony with the laws of nature and the ideals of beauty and goodness and truth. True group consciousness respects the rights and freedoms of others. It will be the aspirant that will have so much resistance to group consciousness because they're not individualized enough yet. They're afraid they're going to lose their sense of self. Once their soul fuses, their human soul fuses with the light of the solar angel, there is no going back. And at that point, they become part of that vision, part of the ideal, part of the fabric of the vision of the group, and respects the rights and freedom of others. In group consciousness, the powerful lion no longer lives to meet individual needs, but lives to serve the needs of humanity. The cave. Okay, let me talk a bit about the cave. Some of you have heard this before, but you probably don't remember it all or even understand it all. So let me help you understand it a little bit better. The Master Djwhal Khul, in the Blue Books given to us by Alice Bailey, talks about the light in the cave in the head. Now, it's not just Master D.K. Patanjali talks about it. It's talked about in Agni Yoga. So it is a truth that is part of the tapestry found in the Ageless Wisdom. This light comes into existence as we climb the mountain, as we climb the ladder of ascent, to the Father's home. In other words, this light begins to radiate when we step onto the path, the spiritual path, the path of transformation, the path of evolution. But that first step is a conscious step. This light eventually finds its full power between the third and fourth initiations of the soul. Hindus have referred to this place of consciousness as the cave of Brahma. This cave is an actual anatomical place in the head that is found deep within the brain. Okay, now, located within the organs of the brain are 5 spaces. These 5 spaces are called ventricles. Okay. What's interesting to me, from a health point of view, but also as perhaps more importantly, a spiritual point of view, is that these ventricles are connected by passages through which the flow of the cerebral spinal fluid, which bathes and nourishes and protects the brain, now functions. And it functions as a spatial circulatory system for the brain and spinal cord. That's why the spinal cord is so important. I was thinking, I'll think really quickly here, how it was in 1995 when I had what they call a spinal tap, because they thought I had a brain tumor. And it took me 3 months to recover from that spinal tap. It was an excruciating experience. Not the actual spinal tap, but the effect it had. And now I understand it when we realize that these ventricles, it's through these ventricles that the spinal fluid bathes and nourishes and protects our brain, and I'm repeating this, which functions as a spatial circulatory system for the brain, as well as the spinal cord. Now, the cave is found in the third ventricle of the 5, which is located in the center of our brain in the area between the pituitary and the pineal glands. Esoteric anatomy says the pineal gland is the head center, and the pituitary gland is related to the ajna. Now, my teacher told me, this was back again in mid-90s, said, don't have a spinal tap, don't have an MRI, don't do this and that, because why? Because the head center is opening. But I was experiencing horrific symptoms, of a brain tumor, and they thought I had a brain tumor. And when some doctor says, you have a brain tumor, you're not, I said, no, it's just my, head center opening. So unfortunately, I didn't listen to the teacher, but nothing horrible happened. And the doctor said, we can't find anything wrong with you. I just suffered a big financial loss during those months of doctor appointments. But anyway, it's interesting how we have these experiences and then the teaching confirms, what's going on. Now, okay, why do we need to know about this, light in the cave in the head? This is where meditation comes in. During meditation, it's the incoming energies from our solar angel that move into the cave in the head. It's the energies of the solar angel during meditation that come from the solar angel into the cave in the head through what? The head center. And the head center is anywhere from 3 to 6 inches from the top of your head. These energies from the solar angel meet the energies of our personality that have become integrated in the Ajna center. Ajna center, pituitary gland. Okay. A radiance then comes into being in the cave, and this radiance is the light of the soul as it fuses with the integrated personality. You see the science of this? The light is found between the pineal and the pituitary glands as a result of their interaction. So what was happening with me is that there was an interaction taking place between these two glands, and I was experiencing extreme vertigo, and pressure in the head is extremely scary. But now I know, and now I can talk about it. When the consciousness has reached this stage, a funnel or a circulating line of energy comes into being between the head center and the cave. The creation of this light is the effect made by the soul energies as they become more and more fused with our personality vehicles. This fusion happens on all levels, the mental, emotional, and etheric, and finally affects the quality of our physical cells, our physical cells. When I talk about physical cells, I'm also talking about the cells in the brain. It's no longer etheric. Now it's come into the physical. In this way, the solar angel, capital S soul, actually incarnates into the personality vehicles in the cave. The energies of our soul, the capital S soul, as opposed to the human soul, flow down into the cave, gradually transmuting the atomic substance of the waiting personality. That atomic substance is what we study, the physical permanent atom, astral permanent atom, mental unit, mental permanent atom. The soul itself, the solar angel itself, becomes incarnated into the personality. This incarnation can be perceived as light, or as light in the cave. Now, are you still with me? Okay. It is through this light that we can align with the higher frequencies, which we are going to do in about 3 minutes. Okay. This is the instrument or the expression for our divine spark, this light in the cave. It functions like a transmitting and receiving station. Now we're talking about our human soul, let's say, can now function as a transmitting and receiving station that it can attune to higher frequencies. We can think of this light as a funnel of energy between it and the head center as the antakarana. The antakarana between the awakened human soul incarnated in the cave and the solar angel on its own plane. So this is something I'm going to be talking about during our Living Ethics Conference in March of next year, of building the antakarana. So this is kind of like an introduction, but I'll be talking about the same thing again a little bit for those that aren't listening to this talk. I'll have to repeat it again next year. Okay. In meditation, we have access to higher frequencies through the cave. And from the cave and through the elevating effect of seed thoughts, we transmit our invocation by lifting our consciousness up to the higher frequencies of our potential.